Is there anything better than taking just one colour and seeing how far it can travel? This is my Bling Me Up Scotty mandala project, and it started with just one main hue, Quinacridone Magenta, staple of every painter's cupboard. One colour, one palette, but not just one effect. This is a modern synthetic pigment. It's a laboratory pigment, but it is still magical, really transparent, intense and light fast. So here I've made a classic dark to light palette using pearl white and also using warm white to create that gradation of pinks that you quite often see in very effective mandala design. And as you can see from this project, there's a very pretty range of shades and tints right across the spectrum between white and Quinacridone Magenta. But I wanted to go a bit darker because space isn't really all about bright colours. It's about how colours fade into black in the darkness of space. Going from light to dark is actually much more tricky than going from dark to light. And it takes a little bit more chemistry and a bit more alchemy. So today we're going to make what I've called Deep Space Magenta, which is a magenta that keeps the integrity of the hue, because the last thing you want to do is just add black and stir, because you're just going to lose the integrity of that colour. Actually moving into a colour which is still magenta, still carries the magenta hue, but actually is fading away into blackness. So first I'm just going to demonstrate how I did the classic dark to light palette that you can see in my project. So I've just put a big glob of warm white into my pot there and quite a small amount of Quinacridone Magenta, and you can see straight away why painters love this colour. You are getting a very strong pink. You get a very strong pink from Quinacridone Magenta and white because the magenta is just extremely high chroma. It's very high tinting strength. So in simple terms, it's already a very pure, intense magenta. So when you add white, you're not weakening it into a dull pastel. You're mostly just making that really intense colour lighter. So white does three things. It raises the value, makes the magenta paler and brighter. It reveals the undertone as well. So Quinacridone Magenta has a cool, blue-leaning pink undertone. When white spreads the pigment out, that undertone becomes more visible. Now I'm going to do the same process with white pearl. And when you mix magenta with the white pearl, you get something slightly different from an ordinary pink. The pearl isn't just lightening the colour, it's adding tiny reflective particles that catch the light as the surface moves. So instead of a flat solid pink, the magenta starts to glow. You still get that gorgeous cool pink coming through, but the pearl scatters the light across the surface. So as you can see from the project, the pearl pink adds another layer of dimension to the painting, creating something like a space-age glow effect. Now I'm moving back to the base colour, the Quinacridone Magenta in its full strength. This is the anchor point of the palette. And because I'm using heavy body paint, I'm using GAC 800 pouring medium, just to thin it down a little. The important thing to note here is that the medium changes the consistency but not the character of the colour. It thins the paint, helps it to move smoothly, but it doesn't shift the hue. Now this is where the colour magic really starts. To take Quinacridone Magenta down into darker territory, I'm introducing the Phthalo Green blue shade. This is an incredibly powerful colour, one of those pigments where a tiny amount can completely take over. So I'm going very, very carefully here, literally just using a speck. And you can see already that that magenta is darkening. So I'm going to go speck by speck, literally, with each speck giving a deeper hue. Phthalo Green is an incredibly powerful colour. It's one of those pigments where a tiny, tiny amount can completely take over a mix. This version, the blue shade, has a cool, deep, almost jewel-like quality. It sits somewhere between green, teal and shadow, which makes it absolutely perfect for pushing magenta into the darker, moodier tones that I'm looking for. Because green and magenta are colour opposites, they neutralise each other. But because both of these pigments are so rich and intense, the result isn't flat or muddy. Instead, you get these rich, complex darks. I'm thinking about plum, aubergine, blackberry, almost cosmic purples. So this mix can be used for different purposes. On a mandala, it could give you a really powerful gradation. You could move from a very pale pink through pure magenta and then down into these deep plums and shadow tones. The whole palette will still feel connected. Nothing will look random because all the colours belong to the same family. It's also a really useful mix if you're painting something where you might be using magenta as a main colour but you need a shadow. So rather than reaching straight for black, which can flatten everything, you can use a touch of phthalo green just to create a darker version of the colour you're already using. That keeps the shadows feeling rich and related. So here it is, my deep Space Magenta. And as you can see from the colour spots on this black rock, how the original magenta colour that seemed quite dark actually when I started, particularly against the mixes with white, has morphed into these gorgeous darker gel shadows, really beautiful, glossy and rich. So I hope you have an experiment with Deep Space Magenta. Please let me know how you get on in the comments, and it would be great if you could like and subscribe to my channel to keep watching. Happy painting!